The Heights Walmart, drilling for oil in our city parks, the new historic preservation ordinance. We Houstonians have a lot of concerns. Tonight, for the full half hour, the Mayor of Houston will answer many of our questions. I'm Ernie Manous, and this is Houston 8. Joining us tonight is the Honorable Annise Parker, Mayor of the City of Houston. Welcome, Mayor Parker.
Glad to be here.
First off, you even said it right before we started, leading with the Walmart. Let's go right into that, get that out of the way right from the top. There's a lot of concern about that in a specific community. I don't know if it's really across the city, if there's issue with it, but it is one that's garnered a lot of attention. What are your feelings on what's going on there?
Actually, I think that is the issue, that it is an issue, that it is something that raised concerns across the community. Walmart has a mixed reputation. They have been a good corporate citizen in many places, but in other places they are known for causing small businesses to falter when they come in and price under the local marketplace. They've faced a number of lawsuits. They have a current class action lawsuit against them for discrimination against women. And the fact that this was a Walmart in a neighborhood that didn't particularly want to see new development caused all of the anti-Walmart folks to jump on the bandwagon of that particular development site.
So as a mayor, though, you're sitting there and you're getting a lot of flack for it from that group that's opposed to it. Is this correctly funneled? And I guess I'm stumbling into this question to say it's not really us against Walmart, is it, from where the city
Well,
sits?
this actually has really, from a city standpoint, it has nothing to do with Walmart. We're not negotiating with Walmart on a development site. There's a first, let's consider where this is going to go. It is a reclaimed brownfield. It's a former rail yard and metal fabricating site. Had heavy contamination, which had to be cleaned off. It is currently a vacant lot surrounded by chain link and razor wire. It has nothing to do with being a zoned city or an unzoned city. I can't imagine any zoned city in the world that wouldn't rather see a Walmart than a vacant brownfield. But a developer came along and optioned the site, began to put their development package together, and came to the city routinely. We want developers to come in early and say, this is what we're going to do before they ever start getting their permits. Einbinder, the developer that's doing this deal, came to us, and at the time they were negotiating with HEB to be their anchor tenant, and we thought we could do what is called a 380 agreement with them, which is something that we've just started experimenting with in the city, where we say, gee, Mr. Developer, you want to do this big project? If you would take some of your money and improve streets in the area, maybe improve a little drainage in the area, things that we might have to do later, but we could use your money up front and pay you back over time, we have a win-win. It helps people get to your development faster and sooner, and it saves the city money that we don't have right now.
What I see people saying all the time is, well, then why is the city negotiating with Walmart and giving Walmart these tax breaks?
And we're not, and that is the good and the bad power of the internet. You throw something up on the web, and if it's bad information, it's there forever. As soon as we were actually planning on bringing this deal to City Council back in June, and about that time we heard from Einbinder that they had switched from HEB as an anchor tenant to Walmart as an anchor tenant, and we thought it would just kind of fly through, and then all of a sudden we said, well, maybe it won't fly through quite so fast. Let's slow the process down, and we actually spent 2 extra months with community meetings and discussions. I had 2 town hall meetings, plus I went door-to-door block walking in the neighborhood. That's absolutely unprecedented. These kind of development deals we do internally and with staff, take them to council, and we move on. But because it was Walmart, and Walmart has a national and international reputation that they have to live up to or down to, we took a lot of time with the deal. But we were not negotiating this deal with Walmart. We did not give Walmart a dime. We haven't given Walmart anything. this was a developer and we're asking them for money, we just pay them back. That's the $6 million. If you spend $6 million of your money, we'll pay you back once you start generating taxes. That's all that is. Now, we are negotiating with Walmart now that the overall deal is done, because Walmart is expanding their footprint in Houston. There are 3 other Walmart stores in various stages of planning or construction in addition to this one. We want to set the standard for what we expect for a Walmart inside the city of Houston. And we don't want it to look like a suburban Walmart. We don't want the sea of parking lot out front. We want green buildings. We want landscaping. We want amenities for our citizens. And we certainly don't want a really great Walmart in this Washington Heights project and so-so Walmart on the south side of town.
Is it worth the political headache, though, for you?
This is about the city. Everything's worth the political headache. I actually have a hard time delegating some of this down, and I got very hands-on on this because this is about the kind of city we want to have and what we can realistically do with the rules or not. This wasn't, don't do this deal with the developer and Walmart goes away. It's, don't do this deal with the developer and we have a poorer, lesser quality development. And we still have Walmart. So let's engage on a productive level. This isn't about today. This is about next year and the year after that and 20 years from now.
We mentioned the internet. One more point on this I want to bring up just to give you a chance to clear it is people are saying, you know what, she's in bed with the developers because they helped her get elected mayor. I'm giving it to you to...
all you have to do is look at my finance reports from the campaign, which are all up on the city's website, and look at the finance reports of the person who ended up in the runoff with me. Every one of the major development organizations, the engineers, the contractors, they were lined up with my opponent. It's an amazing thing that happens, though. Once you get elected, you have this so-called late train fundraiser, and suddenly you have a lot of new best friends. I have been in office now almost 13 years. I came in with an agenda. I have exactly the same agenda, and that is to have the best city I can possibly have.
Okay. Switching gear a little bit, and it's kind of funny.
Drilling in city parks. No, we are not drilling.
I wasn't going to go to that one
parks.
Right now, but as long as you brought it up.
You started with that on your intro. No one has to be reminded that this is a very, very difficult economy, and I am trying to balance a budget, and I have managed to balance the city budget without laying off any employees and without furloughing employees, just to balance the budget. We have laid off people because we didn't need to do those functions anymore, but it is still a very, very difficult budget. There have been tremendous changes in drilling technology. You will not see in a Parker administration a drilling rig in any city park. But because of directional drilling technology, you can site the drilling operation away from the actual area in which they expect to find oil or gas reserves. And we did do a deal for Herman Brown Park.
Which is not Herman Park.
Which is not Herman Park.
Which I've seen that confused by a lot of people.
Yeah, Herman Brown Park is on the outskirts of Houston. And
the other two parks are Herman Brown.
I can't remember at the moment. Herman Brown's the primary park.
Right.
All the money generated, if they find producible reserves, goes right back into the park. And
why the park and not the city as a whole?
Well, part of it is the deed of gift for this particular park. And many of our premier parks, and this is a very, very large park. It's on the scale of a Herman Park or a Memorial Park. Many of the deeds of gift for our premier parks have reverter clauses and so forth. And so first, there's not a drilling rig in the park. Excuse me. It will be nearby, but it will have no impact on the people who are using the park. And it is designed to generate money so that we can have better amenities in the park. We are now working on a citywide ordinance to govern when and where and whether we will allow any kind of drilling in the city of Houston. one of the ways I worked on the ordinance was to talk to Mike Moncrief, who's the mayor of Fort Worth. They do drilling all over the city of Fort Worth, and there are many other cities that have active drilling going on. How do you do it in a way that protects your citizens and allows, in that case, the money to flow back to your general fund?
Right. And any suggestions, any ideas of how much this could generate at this point, or is that?
It's purely speculative. This is an exploratory well, and we don't know what they're going to find.
Okay. Where I was going to go a moment ago was to this preservation ordinance.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people find it ironic the way they're looking at that. They feel that this Walmart in the Heights is going to destroy the nature of the area, and yet at the other hand, you are working on trying to pass an ordinance that is going to preserve our historic background.
The so-called Walmart in the Heights is actually south of I-10 in an industrial area, light industrial area. Let's just be clear about that. I have always been a preservationist. I was engaged when we created the preservation ordinance 15 years ago before I came to City Council. As a council member, I tried to do exactly what we did yesterday, tried to tighten the ordinance to really have no means no protections, which every other city that has a preservation ordinance has.
And explain that a little for people to understand.
Of course, most other cities have zoning, which we don't have. So
if you are considered a historic location,
let me say first, I live in a historic district. I live in a National Register home. I am not imposing anything on any Houstonian that does not apply to me too. So every burden that's being imposed by this applies to me. What we had previously was we created historic districts. We said this is of value to the future of Houston to preserve our history. And if you want to do anything, wait 90 days and let us try to talk you out of it. And then if we can't talk you out of it, developers rule. And it's very ironic to be told that I'm in bed with developers, because this is exactly opposite that.
But is it district or is it particular piece of property?
District.
District, okay.
Districts. If it's a particular property and you're not in a historic district, you have to come to the city and say, I want to preserve my property. We actually have a number of properties in River Oaks. River Oaks is not a historic district, but I think we have a couple of dozen properties over there now where individual property owners have said, I have a historic home. They've come to the city. We've checked it out. Yes, they have a historic home, and we have landmarked them, and so they are protected. But this is about districts where people may or may not want to be in a protected district. Old ordinance, wait 90 days. It's the Houston way. Do whatever the hell you want. New ordinance, if you're in a historic district, you cannot demolish an historic asset without showing some either hardship or other reason why it should come down. If you have a non-contributing structure, something that was built in, say, 1969, and you want to tear it down, we don't care. But if it's part of the historic asset of that particular district, you can't do it.
And so the concern that some people have is that big government is telling them what they can do with their own personal property.
My property values are enhanced by having a historic home if I am embedded in a historic district. Mm-hmm. And so it's a balancing act between my property rights and the property rights of my neighbor who may want to tear down his historic home and, hey, this being Houston, put in a car wash.
So we don't have to worry about that happening, but if it's your home and you decide you want to build a car wash there, is there any recourse now?
There is. One time only, an opportunity to opt out, because we recognize that we have significantly strengthened the old ordinance that had been there for 15 years that was not working, and that because the old ordinance was so weak and many of the historic properties across the city have been demolished, even with this historic preservation ordinance, that we're giving a one-time opportunity for all of the existing historic districts. If you're not in a historic district, don't worry about anything I'm about to say. But if you are in a historic district, if 10% of the people in that district say, hey, City Council, hold up, we want to rethink this, we have now laid out a formal process to rethink it and to allow those districts to be reconfigured or even to be dissolved. We didn't want to say if anybody is unhappy, because there's nothing you can do in government there's not somebody unhappy.
Right.
So 10% was a reasonable threshold to say, well, that's enough people to at least pay attention and try to work something out.
And after the City Council meeting on Wednesday, this is a done deal now?
Yesterday, well, I don't know when this is going to be aired.
Friday
Friday
night.
night. So the council meeting on Wednesday, yes, it is an absolute, they are protected unless they opt out, and the historic districts are very familiar with what the process is going to be to opt out, and we'll see what happens. We will be posting an opt-out petition on the city's website, and we'll have 30 days from there to figure out how many of our districts just stay where they are and how many we have to reconfigure.
Okay, on to things that are on the ballot. We have an election coming up. First of all, do you prefer an election when you're not running to one when you are?
It's always better. The only kind of election to have is when you're unopposed,
Yeah.
and are not on the ballot. And so I am not on the ballot. No city office holders are on the ballot. But there are 3 city initiatives that only Houston voters will see. Propositions 1, 2, and 3, and they're at the end of the ballot. And so people have to wade through all of those interminable judicial races to get to the end, to get to the propositions. Prop 1 has to do with the imposition of a drainage fee. Prop 2 is a minor amendment to our residency requirements to be able to run for city council. We are redistricting next year, which I need to have a whole separate discussion with you on that. Prop 3 is whether you support red light cameras or not. Propositions 1 and 3 were put on the ballot by citizens, Houstonians who were engaged enough in the process to say, we think this is important and we want to vote on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be out campaigning for Proposition 1.
And that is to increase in property tax?
No. It is to create a drainage and infrastructure fee for the city of Houston. Is this a good time to go out and talk to people about paying more to government? No, it's never a good time to do that. But in this economy and with the whole Tea Party movement and then anti-government, we're afraid of government, government's the enemy attitude out there, it's not a great time to do it. But 37,000 Houstonians signed a petition and said, we want this on the ballot.
Explain what it is that they want.
Everybody I've talked to believes that Houston has a drainage problem. I've yet to meet a Houstonian who doesn't think we have a drainage problem. I have yet to meet a Houstonian who is satisfied with the condition of their streets. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you pay for it? You do it with a tax increase, or you do it with a dedicated drainage and infrastructure fee.
How is that different than a tax increase?
I'll tell you. A tax increase, the money comes into the general fund, and I, with city council support, can spend it on anything I want. If you create a dedicated fee by charter, you can only spend it on what the charter allows you to spend it on. And so this drainage and infrastructure fee, it's not a piggy bank for the government. And the charter specifically says that we have to set a drainage fee that will raise a certain amount of money, and that money can only be spent on streets and on drainage. So but it goes even farther.
But is this an additional bill that I'm going to be getting?
It will be, but let me tell you, it goes even farther. It says whatever the city is already spending on streets and drainage, which is inadequate, you have to keep spending that. So this is not a new source of revenue, so you can take your old revenue and go play with it. It's whatever you're spending now, you have to keep spending, plus whatever you raise from this new fee, you have to spend on this. And finally, every bit of money that is currently going from other sources into streets and drainage, like we get money from Metro for general mobility, has to keep going into streets and drainage. It's one of those things that I'm amazed that Houstonians decided to do this. I'm very impressed that Houstonians decided to do this. But it is a creature of the times because it sort of handcuffs us. Right. It says, we're going to give you money, and we're going to tell you exactly how you can spend it. And the final thing is it forces us off of debt into a pay-as-you-go. So it is we cannot spend it if we don't have it. So I'm not burdening future Houstonians.
For the spending of it?
Well, that is up to City Council. We do a published capital improvement program every year. We do a 5-year capital projects list And so we vote on that as a body, so people will know exactly what projects are coming. And I have presented to council, because the only downside of Proposition 1 is that they said, we're going to pass this, and then council has to come back and create whatever the fee is. And I didn't think it was fair to go to the voters without giving them some idea what the fee would be. So I presented to council a list of priorities and principles under which we would do it, sort of defining the box, and somehow in that box is where the fee is going to fall. For an average homeowner on a curb and gutter street, it'd be about $5. For an average homeowner on an open ditch street, maybe $4.50.
And you're talking about a month on that?
Right.
And ultimately for the city, how much would that come to then?
$125 million a year.
And that could then make a significant difference in our drainage and
We
streets?
have billions of dollars in drainage infrastructure needs, hundreds of millions of dollars in street infrastructure needs. Right now, if it would take us 75 years at the current rate of spending to complete the current backlog. Never get there. Yeah. And so I guess the short version is for me and the voters, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to vote on this. Do we have a problem? Yes, we have a problem. How do you deal with the problem? We cannot deal with the problem with the current level of funding we have. Can we come up with a plan that is fair and reasonable and does not allow any of this money to be diverted? Absolutely we can. And by voting on this, it is the best, cleanest solution to deal with these infrastructure problems, and it prevents me or any future mayor from using this money for other things.
Okay, let's take us up on top of the streets now. Proposition 3, red light cameras.
Red light cameras. This is actually, I'm very intrigued at this. This is another one this is one of those where I'm kind of scratching my head, because the citizens came to us and said, we want you to do away with red light cameras. Before we get into that,
have we seen more safety, better, at the intersections where these cameras have been put? Has there been improvement?
There has been. The problem is, and you're going to hear a lot of rhetoric out there about accidents. Anybody who regularly drives city streets in Houston sees people run red lights. We have an epidemic of red light runners, and there are currently 70 red light cameras around the city of Houston, many of them in downtown Houston. Red light cameras absolutely reduce the number of red light runners, and they reduce the number of side impact crashes. They may, however, slightly increase the number of fender benders where someone stops abruptly and you bump them from behind. Which is the more dangerous crash? To me, and what I say to citizens, you're a licensed driver, I assume.
Yeah.
Do you know you're not supposed to run a red light?
Yes, I know that.
And you know it's against the law, and you understand that I have the ability to regulate red light cameras through the use of my police powers. Would you rather me put a police officer at that intersection? And that police officer gets paid overtime. That police officer can't patrol your neighborhood. That police officer has to be changed out 3 shifts a day. Or would you rather me put a red light camera there that never sleeps, doesn't have to be paid overtime, and I can do something else with that police officer?
What about enforcement, though? Of those, the tickets you get from a red light camera, I've heard all different sorts of stories. There's nothing you folks can do about it. We don't have to pay it. What is the reality behind the legality of those tickets?
If a police officer writes a ticket, it goes on your permanent driving record, and we will put out warrants for your arrest if you don't pay them. If a camera issues the ticket, it's the equivalent of a parking ticket. Now, that we do have enforcement. I mean, you get a parking ticket, you get enough of them, we find you, we boot you. The state has allowed us to hold registrations for your vehicle registration if you don't pay your tickets. What I want is for you not to run red lights. Mm-hmm. And this has become about whether cameras should be allowed to issue tickets. No, it's about whether we should have people who run red lights. This is the most effective, efficient way to address problem intersections across the city of Houston.
Okay, we are running out of time. Those are ballots that are there. We didn't get to Prop 2, but they can learn more out there in the world.
I mentioned that briefly earlier.
Quickly, the questions that have come in from the internet, so I have to ask you. Is the government's role to protect the citizens from others or to protect us from ourselves?
That's a really good question. Wish you'd given me a heads up on that. My initial response is that it is the role of government primarily to protect us from others. There are times when government has to step in to protect us from ourselves, but we live in a city, in a state that leaves a lot up to the individual, much more so than many other states. And I'm proud of that.
Quickly, in the 15 seconds we have left, they want to know, is there anything that Annise can do to fight bullying and gay bashing in Houston?
That's something that we all have a responsibility for. I have a high school-aged child, and I know the problems of bullying. We need to work with the schools, but this actually starts at home.
Okay, and we are out of time. I do want to thank you for coming. We did a show recently where we talked about how politicians don't come into the media, and you're always there to answer questions. So Thank you very much for that. And now each week we invite you to visit our home online at HoustonPBS.org. Simply click on the local program bar, pick Houston 8, and you can join our online community. Read about the guests, learn more about the topic, and even watch past episodes. That does it for us for tonight. Until next time, I'm Ernie Manous. Thank you for joining us, and have a great week.